They thought she was nobody. Just another quiet figure standing near the edge of the airfield while alarms wailed and engines screamed in the background. Her flight suit was worn, faded from years of service, not freshly pressed like the officers rushing past her. No one stopped to ask her name. No one wondered why she stood so close to the hangar doors when everyone else was scrambling for cover from the storm. In moments like these, people only noticed rank, volume, and authority. She offered none of those on the surface, and so she became invisible. The wind howled across the base, dragging sand into every crack and crevice. Floodlights flickered, barely cutting through the thick brown haze that swallowed the night. Radios buzzed non-stop with fragments of messages, warnings, and half-formed orders. Somewhere beyond the storm, beyond the safe perimeter, a small group of soldiers waited in silence, pressed into the dirt, hoping their training would carry them through another hour. Inside the command tent, the mood was grim. Maps were spread across tables, weighed down by empty mugs and shaking hands. Officers stared at blinking markers, knowing exactly what they represented. A reconnaissance unit had been sent to confirm enemy movement along a critical supply route. They were experienced, disciplined, and well prepared. That hadn't mattered. The ambush had been sudden and precise. The enemy knew the terrain. The last transmission mentioned casualties, broken cover, and a shrinking escape window. Someone said the weather made extraction impossible. Another added that enemy anti-air systems had likely shifted into the area by now. A third officer suggested waiting until dawn, his voice low, avoiding eye contact with the others. No one liked that option, but it was the safest one for those sitting comfortably under canvas and steel. That was when she stepped closer and spoke. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't cut through the room with force. It didn't need to. It was steady, confident, and certain. She said she could reach them. She said the storm actually worked in their favor if flown correctly. She said the aircraft was capable, and more importantly, she was. A senior officer turned sharply, irritation flashing across his face. He asked who authorized her presence. He told her this briefing was classified and above her clearance. Someone else gestured toward the exit, telling her to wait outside like everyone else. She didn't move. She repeated the coordinates from memory, corrected an error on the map, and described the exact terrain the down team would be sheltering in. Rocky ground, minimal cover, wind breaking from the east. She mentioned the specific altitude band where visibility briefly improved between gusts. The room fell quiet, not because they believed her yet, but because no one without first-hand experience could have known those details. One officer leaned closer, finally noticing the insignia stitched onto her shoulder. His expression changed instantly. He whispered her call sign to the man beside him, who stiffened and looked again, this time with recognition. She had been deployed longer than some of them had been enlisted. She had flown missions that never made it into press briefings or recruitment videos. When situations became politically inconvenient or operationally impossible, her name quietly appeared on a list, and if she accepted the mission, people slept better that night. The commanding officer studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. Clearance granted. Launch immediately. As she walked toward the aircraft, the storm seemed to grow angrier, as if challenging her decision. Ground crew hesitated, their faces tight with concern, but she met their eyes and gave a single, reassuring nod. They trusted her more than the weather report, more than the odds. The aircraft lifted off violently, swallowed almost instantly by darkness and sand. Inside the cockpit, everything rattled. Warning lights blinked. Instruments struggled to stabilize. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, dangerous, reckless. She flew anyway. Her breathing slowed as the world narrowed to altitude, speed, and instinct. She remembered every simulation, every failure, every lesson learned the hard way. She remembered the pilots who trained her, some of whom never came back from their own missions. She carried their knowledge with her now, woven into muscle memory and reflex. On the ground, the trapped soldiers listened to the storm and prepared themselves for the worst. They had redistributed ammunition, torn strips of fabric for bandages, and taken turns staying awake. One of them kept checking the radio, knowing it was useless but unable to stop. They had been trained to expect abandonment as a possibility, not because command didn't care, but because sometimes survival demanded cold decisions. When the radio crackled to life, they froze. Her voice came through calm and clear, cutting through the chaos like a lifeline. She told them to mark their position, to prepare for extraction, to stay low. She didn't promise safety, she promised effort, and somehow, that was enough. The aircraft appeared out of the storm like something unreal, hovering with impossible control. Enemy fire erupted from the darkness, tracer rounds slicing through the air, but she adjusted without hesitation, keeping the aircraft steady while her crew worked with brutal efficiency. One soldier was pulled aboard, then another. Blood stained the floor, pain echoed in muffled groans. The wounded were secured as fast as hands could move. The last man slipped as a gust hit, nearly dragging him away, but she compensated instantly, shifting power, holding position until he was safely inside. The escape was violent. The aircraft dipped low, surged forward, and vanished back into the storm, using terrain and weather like armor. Missiles searched for heat that never lingered long enough. Radar struggled to track what refused to fly predictably. When they finally broke through the storm and the base lights appeared ahead, relief washed over everyone on board. Some laughed weakly, others closed their eyes. One soldier whispered "thank you," not knowing if she heard him. She did. The landing was rough but controlled. Medics rushed in, stretchers moved fast, orders were shouted, lives were stabilized. As the rescued soldiers were carried away, many turned their heads, searching for the pilot who had defied logic to bring them home. She was already removing her helmet. Later, as the storm passed and silence settled over the base, reports were written and commendations discussed. Officers spoke in quieter tones now. The woman they had dismissed earlier walked past them again, still unnoticed by most, still uninterested in recognition. That was her way, because tomorrow, somewhere else, someone would be waiting in the dark, and once again, people would think she was nobody. Until the rescue pilot spoke. If stories of unseen courage, impossible missions, and warriors who don't seek applause move you, then make sure you subscribe to Bravo Warrior Stories. Your support allows us to share more powerful, realistic military stories that deserve to be told. Stay connected with Bravo Warrior Stories, where bravery lives in the shadows and heroes rise when it matters most.